Hello friends, welcome back to my YouTube channel. If it's your first time here, hi, my name is Mal and I make Tumbler tutorials here on YouTube every single week. I am super into this boho kind of retro trend that's been developing over the past year or so. So today's tumbler is inspired by that kind of boho vibe. We're going to be making some, I'm calling them abstract blobbies. That's the scientific name. And we're going to use a lot of different glitters, some paint pens to make a unique, really fun, and totally customizable design. There are a million different ways that you can make this technique your own. You can use your own custom glitter colors, of course. You can use different paint pen colors. You can add a few different elements to the design to really make it a totally unique cup. So I hope that you guys enjoy it. I hope it inspires you. And if you recreate this design, make sure you tag me in your photos at madebymaniandmal on Instagram and TikTok, because I really just like to see what you guys come up with. So be sure to tag me in your photos so I can see and show you some love. Everything I'm using is linked down below in the description box as always. I'll also have some discount codes down there for you, as well as links to all of my social media pages and my Facebook group and exclusive Patreon group. So all of that is down there for you always. Okay, I think that's it. I really hope you guys enjoy the video. Let's go. We're starting with a 20-ounce modern tumbler from Craft Haven. I've base painted it using gloss white spray paint from Rustoleum. And now I'm going in with some fast setting epoxy to use for my glitter application. So this is the epoxy method, and I'm going to use a little bit more epoxy than you typically would for the epoxy method. I'm going to put about 5-ish milliliters on my cup. Typically you'd want to stay between like 1 and 2, but because this glitter is so chunky and big, I want it to kind of soak into that epoxy just a little bit. This glitter is Venetian from Peachy Olive Glitters, and it's a really beautiful kind of like yellow pink shift. So I applied that to my entire cup, and now I'm going in, as you can see, and just tapping down that glitter the best I can to get it to lie as flat as possible. And now typically I would seal my glitter with the Crystalac glitter glue, but I forgot to do that this time. So I'm going to show you kind of what you can do if you forget to seal your glitter, or if your glitter is just sticking up like crazy all over the place when you epoxy. So I'm going to add a layer of epoxy here, about 20 milliliters. And then after that first coat, I'm going to go in and do some very, very light sanding. You can see how pokey my cup is. I did sanding with about, I think, a 180 grit. You want to keep it pretty fine. So I'm going to just sand that a little bit, wash it with some dish soap and water, do another coat, sand again, and now this coat is going to be my third coat of epoxy. So I'm doing a very light sanding in between each epoxy coat to make sure that my cup is totally smooth when I am ready to go in for my next step, but it also doesn't have like 9,000 coats of epoxy on it, if that makes sense. So here's what the cup looks like after the third coat. You can see it's pretty perfectly smooth. And now I'm going to go in with some blue painter's tape and my craft knife to start to create my little abstract blobbies all over the cup. So I'm laying down some of this blue painter's tape to use as a stencil for cutting out my blobbies. So I'm going to line this tape up, and then I'm going to take my craft knife and just cut out a really random blob shape. There's no pattern to this. You can just kind of let your hand go crazy if you want. They're just supposed to look like literal just blobs of color. So be wild with it, have fun with the shapes, and don't worry about making them too perfect. Once I've got my shape cut out, I'm going to remove the inside part of this tape, and that's going to act as the stencil for my glitter. So I'm going to continue doing this around the entire cup. I'm trying to just space these out a little bit. We're going to end up doing 2 rounds of this taping and cutting and stencil building. So don't worry if your cup kind of looks random or sporadic. We're going to go in and add a few more shapes after these are done. For this design, I'm going in with kind of a neutral boho kind of theme. So I'm going to use Aurora from Chase Ray, Sahara from PDB, Rebel Rose also from PDB, and then Vintage from Peachy Olive Glitters, and Contour also from Peachy Olive Glitters. So I kind of picked colors that were all almost in the same family. I really want this neutral vibe here, but of course you can pick whatever colors you want. So I'm taking some of the Crystalite glitter glue, putting it into a mixing cup, and then adding a little bit of salmon acrylic paint from Delta Ceramcoat. It's just a nice tone. It doesn't really match the base of any of the colors we're going to put down, but it does kind of tint that glitter underneath just a little bit. You can use a darker base if you'd like. Whatever you have on hand will work totally fine. So for the first color, I'm going in with Contour, and I'm just basically going to base paint my shape, glitter it, and then move right on to the next color, and then I'll remove all of my tape at the very end. Now, when you're removing your tape, you want to be very, very careful. Remember, your glitter adhesive is wet underneath there still, so just be careful as you're peeling off your tape. You don't want to mess up your shapes or anything. So once I've got my tape removed, I'm going to go in with a little chip brush, just brush off any excess. Again, be very, very careful with this. And then once I'm done with that, I'm going to let this dry for 2 hours and then go in with the Crystalite glitter glue again and seal all of my glitter shapes individually. Once I'm finished sealing them, I'm going to let them sit and dry for another 2 hours, and then we'll go in and add our second round of shapes. We're going to build the second round of shapes the exact same way we did with the first, except I'm using a thinner tape here. I want these shapes to be a little bit smaller. I just want to be able to build them within those empty spaces that we have in between the shapes we've already put down. So in total, I think I have 9 shapes on this cup. So I'm going to end up using all of the colors except for one twice. And I'm trying, initially I was trying to not have the same colors next to each other, but at the very end I ended up putting the exact same color next to each other, but it's okay. It ended up looking fine. I would just pay attention to that if you don't want your similar colors, to be right up against each other in the very end. After those have dried, I'll go in and do another coat of sealing on the second round of shapes that we have, and once that dries, I'm ready to go in and finally seal all of these spots with a coat of epoxy. I'm going to do 2 coats of epoxy over these shapes before we move into our next design element, just to make sure that they are totally smooth and ready for their outlines. In all the pictures I've seen, the outlines on the abstract shapes are always a little bit off. They don't perfectly outline the shapes. So I'm taking some paint pens. I'm using some Posca ones and some ones from Mondo Llama, that's a brand at Target. And I picked some colors that kind of matched with this color theme I was going with. And as you can see, I'm literally just drawing a random kind of outline on my glitter shapes. And I'm just matching up like my light paint pen with my darker glitter colors so that the outlines just kind of pop off the background a little bit. So like I said, make sure that these aren't perfect outlines. You don't want to just go right in and draw right around the edge of your glitter. You want them to be off just a little bit. So don't have to be too perfect with this. Just let your fan draw and do what it wants to do, basically. After I had my outlines all down, I took this super thick Posca paint pen. This is just a regular white one. And I'm gonna do some little sections of just 3 little dot clusters, as you can see there, all over just in random spots of the cup to add another little detail. In a lot of the pictures I've seen, like I said, they have a lot of these little kind of details. Some of them have random little brush strokes, some of them have little circle outlines. So I would recommend looking on Pinterest or wherever to see some of these abstract designs, and then you can kind of pull from that inspiration and do your own thing on your tumbler. So once the paint was all dry, I let it sit maybe about 30-45 minutes. I'm going to go in with my almost final coat of epoxy. I'm going to do a coat here. Once that's cured, I'm going to do all of the sanding on my top and bottom rims, and then I'll go in with my actual final coat. These final 2 coats were only about 15 milliliters. You don't need to use too much at this point because your cup should be pretty smooth. So that's it for this tutorial. Here is the final result. I had so much fun making this tumbler, and I can't wait to make a few more using different color combinations, maybe adding some more elements. So I hope that you guys enjoyed it. I hope it inspires you. If you recreate this design or use this tutorial as inspiration, be sure to tag me in your photos at madebymaniandmal because I would love to see what you come up with. Thank you guys so much for watching as always, and I'll see you in the next one. Okay, love you. Bye.